wouldn't it be unreal if the first time you had sex, it was absolutely amazing? You knew exactly what to do. You felt the most amount of pleasure. You gave the most amount of pleasure possible, and it was just a blessed experience. I think that would be absolutely delightful. However, that is in fact obviously not the case. There is a lot of mistakes and a lot of things that happen along your journey. And unfortunately, it does involve bad sex, but bad sex is what leads us to learn more about ourselves, our wants, our needs, and our desires. So trust me, you're in good company. But the most important thing is to not be embarrassed or feel ashamed of that. It happens to everybody at some point, and honestly, it's one of the best parts of sex. Yes, bad sex is one of the best parts of sex, or can be one of the best parts. So I wanted to share with you guys some bad sex that everybody has had at some point or will have at some point of their lives to hopefully help you feel less judgment and less ashamed or less embarrassed in the bedroom. And you bet I'm gonna be sharing some of mine. So the first one that I wanna talk about is something that I think we all have encountered, or you have heard at least somebody say it. Everything is good but the sex. We have all been there, or maybe you haven't, and bless your soul, because this is a predicament that you do not want to land yourself in. However, you can get out of it in a couple of different ways. But first things first, you guys have this amazing chemistry, the banter is there, the vibes are good, the energy is amazing, the emotional intimacy is so strong and so good, and you want to move to the next stage, which is sex. There's this huge buildup, and then it happens, and the sex is absolutely awful. It's awkward, you guys are both throwing like elbows and knees, you're on different rhythms, there's no groove happening, you're not reading each other's body language, it's trash. Now, obviously, there are a few different ways you can handle this. You can either completely abandon ship and be like, hell nah, I don't want to deal with this. The chemistry is just not here. It's not something I'm willing to work on. And then you have the other side of the spectrum where somebody has put in a lot of effort or invested a lot of time, and they actually see a future with this person, and they might not want to jump ship right away. They might want to give them a chance. This is perfect because this is the time that you guys are gonna have that open conversation. The best way to talk about sex is to not have any expectations and really come into the conversation with curiosity, wanting to know how your partner wants to be pleased and vice versa. How can I give you pleasure? How do I like to receive pleasure? How can we communicate? How can I show you? And how can you show me how we can learn more about each other's bodies? Because it is something that we need to practice. Honestly, our bodies are ever changing, and that's gonna happen through multiple phases of your relationship. Whether it's trying something new, a new position, maybe it's switching up an oral technique because that just doesn't work for you anymore, or whatever it might be, it's kind of one of those things that ebb and flows. So if you have the conversation early on, chances are it's gonna be easier to have in those other phases that your life moves through. Bottom line is, don't worry, we have all been here. The second one that I wanna normalize is how dirty talk can go so wrong. Sure, dirty talk can be absolutely amazing and is definitely one of my favorites. However, there are definitely things that you can say that are super awkward and very strange and just downright weird. And I think we've all been with somebody who keeps repeating the same phrase over and over and over again. Or perhaps you don't know what to do, you don't know what to say, and then your mind just goes blank, so you say nothing and you just don't respond. Dude, trust me, I have been there where my brain stalls because somebody said something absolutely absurd or insane, or maybe I've even said something crazy and I've just been like, whoa, did I actually mean that? What the actual? I've also been with this guy who was like super into whispering dirty things. However, I could never understand him. Even if he was like whispering in my ear, it felt like he was never opening his mouth. So I would just be like, what? Say it again? Like trying to get it to until I got to the point where I was like, what are you saying to me? Like, can you talk louder, enunciate yourself? Like, help me out here. And he still didn't get it. Honestly, my best recommendation here is if you are the one who said something totally out of pocket and just random and weird and awkward, just laugh about it. Just go with it. Be like, whoa, sorry, and continue on. Honestly, that's the best thing that you can do. And if you're on the other side, laugh with that person. These things happen. Sex can be funny as hell, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. This next one that I want to talk about is a shower sex, because hear me out, it is not as good as everybody makes it out to be. Honey, you are honestly missing nothing. Period. End of story. Move on. I feel like we can end it here. However, if you must try it, because honestly, I am a firm believer that you can't knock something until you try it, unless you know. If you know, you know. Because it's not like the right type of wet. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Like, I'm thinking of this one time when we were in a smaller shower and me and my partner were going at it, and I was bent over and the water was like smoking me in the face, and I was just taking it. And then he said, wait, babe, are you enjoying this right now? Like, are you getting waterboarded? I'm like, oh, yes, I am. But no, I'm not enjoying this, but I'm kind of okay because I'm slightly distracted and this is kind of so good right now. Or, you get like conditioner in your eye because, shower sex is never really planned. It's always that like sporadic sex and spontaneous. The next one I want to normalize is the type of sex where we are like, I have absolutely no idea what I am doing right now. We have all been there. Our first time on top, a new position, a new kink we're gonna try, and both of us know nothing about what's happening. You're in these awkward twist up positions, and there's nothing you can do other than laugh about it. Yeah, the truth is, it might not be the thing for you, or it just might be bad the first few times that you try it. But honestly, if you want to make it work, practice does make perfect. The next one I want to normalize is the bodily function show, because your body does things sometimes and it can really mess up your sheets, if you know what I mean. Now, I have ruined a fair amount of sheets, duvets, comforters, couches. You name it, I've probably ruined it. And on top of that, if you have a vulva, you know that randomly out of nowhere, apparently your period can just get like effed out of you at any point in time. Not actually, but I feel like that happens where you're like, I wasn't supposed to get it and now it's here right now and it's all over your face. I'm so sorry. I made you ready for battle. But if it's not that, it could either be a fart, a queef, a squirt, you name it, it could happen. You could even fart, queef, burp, and sneeze all at the same time. Literally, it's a bodily function show. These are things that are honestly kind of inevitable. They are bound to happen at some point. And honestly, there is nothing to be embarrassed about. Sure, you might have that embarrassment initially because trust me, I have been there. I literally remember the loudest cheek clapper after anal when I sat down on the toilet and just let everything out of me. It was wild. It was wild. And of course, it was silence everywhere. It was embarrassing, but honestly, I died laughing and so did he. And it was all part of the whole experience. It's amazing. When these things happen, it really goes to show like who you just played with, how they can actually support you. If you're gonna be all uptight about it and be like, you gross, honestly, I don't wanna be sleeping with you anyway. And let's be serious, y'all are swapping all sorts of intimate fluids already, am I right? Yeah. I'm right. Now I want to talk about that sloppy hookup or that sloppy session, sex, whatever you did. It was sloppy, and we've all been there, or we've all almost been there. Usually it's that same night where your confidence is so high, you get all kinds of messed up, you think you look sexy AF, and you do the do, and then you wake up the next morning looking back at your phone, looking at your pictures, being like, oh my God, I was out of it. That probably was not my best performance, not my best show, not my best anything. What the hell just happened? To be honest, sometimes you just need to wake up and say, shh, we're not gonna talk about it, and just drink her down with a nice dark cup of black coffee. Cleanse your soul. Now this one is a banger, and I think it hits deep for a lot of us out there, because if you have not done this before, you definitely have thought about it, or you know somebody who is a chronic repeat offender of this. And that is, I am already regretting doing this with the ex type of sex. You know, you meet up with your ex with some ridiculous excuse. Like, I mean, like, it doesn't even make sense at all, like ever. And before you know it, you're back in bed together. But as you're doing it, it really starts to sink in. Oh no, this was a mistake. This was messy. Now I've made things complicated. Don't worry, these things happen, and it has happened to many of us. Honestly, some people just get up, off, and leave. And on the flip side, I have also stuck it through all the way to the end and just wrote it out and then laid the one-liner that says, this can never happen again. It's not great, but it happens. The next type of bad sex I would like to normalize is the ones that look better in the movies. Dude, I am 5'7", and these legs are long. We're not fucking in a Honda Civic. This also applies to the beach, the pool, the hot tub, even sex up against the wall. Even if you have somebody who is super, super jacked, how long can you actually hold me up for? Because really, realistically, we're probably only gonna get 5 strokes unless you have like this super jacked man with this tiny girl who's like 4'11" or 5 feet that weighs maybe 100 pounds soaking wet. Also, like, does anyone else notice that? All these tall guys are with these like really, really small, tiny girls. Like, what about the tall girls? But all of these things tend to look easy in the movies or in scenes, and in fact, in reality, they're just not. They're complicated. And some things are just not as easy as they look. Now this next one I think honestly is still really funny, but I tend to laugh when I am in pain, and it's just kind of how she goes, and that is the injury-induced sex. We've all taken an elbow or a knee to the face, the groin, or got a cramp, you know. I've literally split the back of my throat. Sometimes things get painful and a little bit too crazy, and random freak accidents can happen. Like one time I was wet, slipped out and rammed it into my back door. I literally rolled off the bed, held my booty hole, and acted like Peter Griffin and just was silent. I couldn't say anything, and then when I finally could say something, all I could do was laugh. These things do happen. Just make sure you have some sort of first aid kit, an ice pack, whatever you need for emotional and physical support after a traumatic event like that happens. Obviously, we don't want these things to happen, but the truth is they do happen. This next one, I have been here a few times. This is like the race to the finish line type of sex. You know, all that build up, things are super steamy, everything's super wet. It is good. You are so excited because you know this is gonna be a crazy and then it happens. And then they finish first, and they finish and they roll over and act like their job was just done. Maybe you still even have your clothes on. Does it even count as bad sex if you didn't even make it to the sex? Or does bad sex just not count as sex? Because if that's the case, I'm almost a virgin. JK. I'm just saying, if you make it to the finish line before your partner does, at least offer. Don't leave them in the dust like that. They wanted it too. Finally, this one is also a banger. I also think this is very funny. However, it's not great. This one has definitely embarrassed me, but it's only ever happened one time. One time. Using the wrong name during sex. Here's a good recommendation for you. If you have a fear of saying somebody else's name during sex, whether it's a previous partner or a fantasy, just avoid the name altogether and go to something like super generic, like baby, sweetie, good girl, daddy. I don't know anything else than nailing them with their name, because when you say the wrong name, you can't come back from that. You cannot come back from that. Like, obviously, it's completely an innocent mistake. Like, I would never, ever want to do that, and I would never want to have that done to me. Sometimes it's just better to call it off after that, but that's really only if they heard you. All right, babies, that is it. That is all that I have for you today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Hit me up in the comment section down below if you have any video requests that you want to see or hear about or learn about. And yeah, I will see you next week for another episode. Cheers.